Hello. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Welcome. If you are tuning in, we are going to be continuing to try to share content that can help you, that you can plug and play and use with your teams or use individually for your own personal development. And I am very, very excited to host this month's free workshop. And we are recording this actually on a very special day, Kara. It is our dad's birthday today. So happy birthday to our dad, Pablo. He is an inspiration, I know, in many ways to both of us. But I am excited to be here with you, who Kara not only serves as our creative director at Educator Aide Incorporated, but she also, in spite of the fact that we're sisters, we work together. And I know that that's a very special thing. I know that that is not always a privilege that a lot of people get, to work with their family and to also still love each other too. So I'm just really glad to have you here, not only because I admire you, because you're my older sister, but because of your work that you have accomplished in your professional life as well. So welcome today. And if you're watching this, that means that you texted us. So thank you. Please do stay in touch. We send out a free learning workshop every month. It's something new we've started in 2022, and excited for some future episodes and I guess episodes. I don't know. What should we call this? Workshops.
Workshop it. Yep.
Yeah. And the potential to maybe partner with some others in this space of personal growth and commitment to continuing to understand ourselves better so we can also humanize and understand others better. I did choose a picture that means a lot to me. You might be saying, Justine, that's a weird picture. I took a picture with my phone. It's in my apartment actually. And I have this cool box that you see underneath. It says Paris, and it has all these old photos and stuff. And then of course you see some other parts about me, meaning there's a plant, a MacBook charger, my new camera that I got a couple of months ago to start experiencing the world in kind of a different way on my nature walks. And then a phrase that is actually, I will give a shout out to Hypnotherapists of Chicago. If you are not following them on Instagram, you should be, but they are an organization that I get the pleasure of being a client of. And one of the mantras and things that I've been working on is just returning to really more understanding of who I am as a person. So I also have that little sign in the background that you see that says she remembered who she was and the game changed. And so a lot of this workshop is about something I'm very deeply passionate about, but we're going to continue forward here. You see our dash names. You see me and my sister's dash names with our significant others there. And yeah, so we're going to dive right in. And we are going to introduce ourselves further. I kind of already did that in a roundabout way. And that was kind of a little element about my personal story. So now you know that I currently work with a hypnotherapist in one of my practices. That was a very personal element to start with. And I will share really the professional credential I'd like you to really know most about me for this particular workshop, not related to K-12 really at all, though that has been my entire career. And it is a certification called the Process Communication Model. And I am one of the only certified facilitators and coaches in North America that is a millennial and Latina. It's actually it's very, very known process and built on a therapy model in a lot of countries around the world. North America is actually not the most saturated country. So many people haven't heard of that model. And it was all developed off of Eric Berne's transactional analysis theory, which is actually how most therapists in our country are trained in the United States. So I wanted to offer that and have shared a bit about me. And I would love for you to do the same, Kara. Just maybe a personal story about you, a personal element or detail like how I kicked off, and then some of your professional credentials and why I really do admire and respect some of the different traumas and abilities that my sister has from coming from the profession of nursing for many years.
Thank you for that intro. Yes, a little known fact about me, I actually live in a very rural county. We have a population of about 35,000 in my broad sprawling county, and about 50% of that is Amish. I live on a little homestead of 8 acres, and in my spare time, I'm a hobbyist gardener. I love to cook. And I will talk about my credentials from the lens of I no longer pursue this part of myself, but I went to school and got my bachelor's degree in nursing. I was a registered nurse for almost 20 years, and I actually took an early retirement / permanent sabbatical from my nursing career in July of 2021, almost a year ago. We're almost up to a year. Basically the day after I quit, I started working with Director Aide. And technically, Justine is my client,
Justine.
but I consider my sister a business partner and invaluable mentor in my entrepreneurial path. So, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I will share a caveat for both of us, because I realized I was on a panel. I got the honor of being on a panel of one of my colleagues the other day. And I was telling a little bit of my story based on a question she had asked me. And I said, yeah, and I'm a third culture kid. And she goes, whoa, can you explain what that means? So I realized that's also a small caveat. Kara mentioned she lives amongst many people who are still practicing the Amish tradition. So little caveat about both of us, beyond our professional credentials in the nursing and K-12 spaces and certifications and all of those things, we grew up in a bicultural home, meaning we were accessible to many experiences from 2 very different cultures. Our father's lineage being Puerto Rican, and our mother, may she rest in peace, her background being really Amish and Mennonite, to the point where we have our grandpa on our dad's side hearing Spanish growing up. They had a restaurant. We got the privilege of growing up, going to a restaurant every weekend, and drinking virgin pina coladas, by the way, a drink we both still enjoy. And then going to these family reunions sometimes in the summer where you really had never seen or met any of these Amish folk. They're speaking in Dutch. And the reality of that is you do, whether it's by coping skills or positive experiences, no matter how you label them, we do have this very unique lens of the world and navigating what it means to show up in spaces and maybe not always know where you fit in or belong. And so I know for both of us, working through distress, which, as you saw earlier, the topic of this workshop is understanding and managing distress. That is something that we have been acutely aware of how, well, I should say, even if we were not acutely aware of it as kids, it is something we've always just been used to. And it's very much normal for us as a cultural norm of trying to understand, well, how do we make sure everybody feels included? And how do we get along better with people who are different from us?
And how do I feel safe in this environment?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's learn. We're on number 3 already. You will know that if you text us in the future to receive our monthly free workshops, we do try to keep them to just 20 or 30 minutes. Very easy. Again, plug and play. You could send out just a couple strategies, could send out in advance as a pre-work before you meet with the team, and then you discuss it together. You could journal afterwards, some of your aha moments about yourself. Or you could reach out to us directly if you want more resources, or you say, I like this one, I want you to go deeper. And finally, we both do offer personalized coaching services as well, executive coaching, for if you're like, I need help organizing my life, or I want to get my PCM profile. I want to know the key to me, which is what your 40-page report is called. If you would decide to move forward with us and you want a full analysis of some of the things we're going to talk about today. So I want to start by defining, I chose this picture, right? I try to choose pictures and presentations that mean a lot to me. You will see two of my dear friends, Dan Pio, who is, I believe he's a principal now at Avon Schools, which is based in Indianapolis area. And then Augustine Amua, who is my co-author of The Social Capital Quotient. You see, we both have t-shirts. He's wearing his there. But they are two of my dear friends and colleagues in K-12 education. And I just love them both dearly. And all three of us happen to be Virgos. Watch out. But I've chosen some pictures, right? Because I think it's important when you are learning together, that you remember we're practitioners and colleagues right alongside you. We might have certain knowledge that we want to share with you and with the world. But at the end of the day, we're people, we're humans. So I'm always clear to put that at the beginning of things, because I just like sharing elements about who I am. I'm not just a facilitator or presenter or somebody who happens to have a certification. So let's start with a common definition, Kara. Distress. It's adding that D and I in front of stress. And when we really examine the true nature of this definition, distress is extreme anxiety, sorrow, or pain. I know in many definitions, it also talks about prolonged anxiety, sorrow, or pain. I would love to hear, because we're still sharing some personal story, and I threw in a tidbit picture of a personal element about me and just two near and dear friends and colleagues in my life. When you think back, you worked many years, even as a new mother to 2 or 3 kids. You have 3 kids total, but you worked many years, even throughout those years of birthing children, the night shift in emergency rooms. Can you talk a little bit about, for you, and that would have been mainly in your 20s and early 30s, but all of your 20s, what did you experience? And just be honest. Did you realize the distress that you were in a lot of times? And what were you doing to sustain yourself and still be able to show up effectively for patients?
So the beginning of my ER career, I was still, fresh to it. It was exciting to me. I felt like I was making a difference and an impact. And I think when I started experiencing actual distress, that was like kind of flew under the radar in different ways and manifested in my body in different ways, physically, spiritually, all of that. I think that was after I had children, and I had a couple of incidents that stick out in my mind that were with children around the age of my children at the time that really threw me into a tailspin of distress, because it was sort of, and I'll say in quotes, easy to look at my job very clinically and surgically, if that makes sense. I could go in, I could separate that this isn't happening to me. I'm actually helping this person get through this really horrible situation in the best way I know how, both medically and then also holistically and spiritually. So I could somehow put a wall there. And then when these two events, one of them was I rode in the back of an ambulance to a facility that was 45 minutes away with a child who had a bottle cap stuck in their throat, a toddler. And the mom was not in any condition to be able, she wasn't able to be with the child because she was in such distress herself. Yeah. And this is right after I had my first child. Another one of the experiences I had was I took care of a SIDS baby, so 6-month-old that had passed away in their sleep. No, SIDS, if you know anything about it, sudden infant death syndrome. There are risk factors involved in it. However, the child did not have any of those risk factors, and it was very sudden and unexpected. And unfortunately, it was the nephew of one of my colleagues and close friends at the time. We were both working together that night, and she was the first one to enter the room. It's going to be her patient. And then I ended up taking over for her. That was kind of the last like thing that I think threw me into kind of a permanent distress within my nursing career. I went on to work, then I quit that job soon afterwards. We moved, and it was kind of natural that I would make my exit. But I took a job in OB nursing, which was all on the flip side of that, very life-giving. But then I had an experience again towards the end of that stint, which would lasted about 5 years, of taking care of a young baby who had a heart defect. And we're in an outlying hospital. So it took about an hour and a half for the ambulance from our NICU that we shuttle patients to arrive. And I was responsible for keeping that child alive for that hour and a half. So these things like over time build up within you. I then took a job in nursing education and was in that for almost 5 years. And as far as the distress in that, it was no longer at the bedside. It was seeing the gross sides of the healthcare system and not wanting to be a part of that. And so here I am today. I've done a lot of healing work, both while I was wrapping up my nursing career and still continuously to this day, to keep myself in a balanced state, dealing with things when I need to be dealing with them. And I would not change anything about my career path and how I got to where I am. However, I would highly recommend that if you deal in these kind of traumatic environments, these public service careers, that you are regularly checking in and monitoring yourself for distress.
Yeah. Yep. One of the things, and you guys will know if y'all want to follow us on social media, we do a lot of fun things as well. We both feel very strongly that such a powerful antidote to anxiety, sorrow, grief, pain, is the healing power of laughing and finding joy, and returning to understanding kind of that inner child and who you were, hopefully what you got to experience some joy, right? And curiosity as a young child. And so if you want to follow us on Instagram in particular, Kara is at Glam Gourmet Home and I am at Spiritually Strategic. I'm putting that out there because I will be developing more and more content to talk about some key points I'm about to make, but I will give you a little teaching in the process communication model here. So before we dive into the 4 myths, that's mainly what we're going to talk about today, is that many of us, we believe these 4 myths when it comes to distress and processing distress. And we have that common definition now that we've all talked through. But I do want to reference a powerful text that actually really dives into the process communication model further, which was developed by Dr. Taby Kaler many decades ago. He has since coached personally many of the astronauts that have gone on space missions with NASA, as well as holding clients like Microsoft, IKEA, Coca-Cola, very big corporations. And one of the first things I realized in going through these hundreds of hours of certification was, this needs to be accessible to the common person like me or Kara. And especially in professions where we find ourselves going through a lot of trauma and processing distress and or holding space for others to process distress. Mm-hmm. This needs to be accessible information, because when I read my Key to Me report, I felt like I was finally reading about myself on paper, with also tangible strategies for how to better bring myself out of distress. So to give you a little bit of quick background knowledge, I just want to name and share with you the 6 core personality types within the process communication model. We all have these 6 personality types within us. And Taby calls this our personality condominium or structure, which you would receive if you choose to work with us at some point. And your condominium, it's truly, I love the visual. It's like a house. And the way how you talk about distress and what happens to your unique personality structure is we sometimes we're at the stairs and then going into this basement of distress where we have all these floors above us of our preferred ways of interacting, communicating, being motivated, resolving conflict, essentially having effective communication. And unless we know that, then we can feel like we're tail spinning a lot and or having a downward spiral. And it doesn't have to be that difficult, is what I've learned. And I found myself in those positions often in my career in K-12 spaces. And similar to Kara in the healthcare sector, we don't have to bear the weight of that on our own. There are ways and strategies for us to learn more about ourselves more deeply. So I want to share with you just very quickly the 6 different personality types. And then with each personality core type, we all have kind of this, it's called our base, or it feels like home and how we operate. It doesn't mean we can't go to those other floors with the other personality types, but we have kind of this base or home base. And for each personality base, there's also kind of this existential question that we find ourselves asking in life. So I'm going to run through those real quick, and then we're going to talk about the 4 myths regarding distress for any of the personality types. And the first personality type is imaginer. And their existential question has to do with autonomy. Do I have autonomy to determine my own life and my own path? The next one is promoter. And that existential question has to do with intimacy and bonding. Can I really trust other people, or will they abandon me? Persister, fear. Often, can I really confront my own fear? Can I overcome this? The next personality is called thinker, and their existential issue to resolve in life is having to do with loss. Can I really overcome this? Can I really see what's next, or will I stay stuck in this loss? And as I'm telling you this, I'm saying this because this is a lot of times the hiccups that cause us to downward spiral into distress. There are obviously so many more elements, positive and also existential, for every personality. So I want to say that clearly, but I'm giving some breadcrumbs here in case you start to go, oh, what personality do I think I am? For rebels, rebel is another personality based type. And their existential issues and questions have to do with responsibility and taking self-responsibility for your life. And finally, the final personality of the 6 is harmonizer. And their existential issue is anger. Can I resolve and experience true anger and work through that in my life? All of these personalities, of course, have different types of masks that we put on when we're in distress. And it's important to remember that when somebody is in distress and they are showing you masked behavior, it's not the real person inside. It is their reaction to that distress. And I know that that is very, very hard to understand. This was very, very hard for me to grasp some of these concepts, Kara, because for so long, I think many of us live our lives going, well, that's just not fair. Or they made me feel this way.
Yeah.
And what we will find is that it is actually how we process our response to distress and distressful situations that can keep us stuck or keep us in that state of even deep despair.
I want to add here too, real quick, like when I took my personal inventory, it would have been the end of 2020, the beginning of 2021, somewhere in there. And it has helped me exponentially, just even in my personal relationship with my husband, with different family members that when you are close with people, sometimes you have more moments of distress because you're just around them more and with them more in their life. And I think it's really important, again, to hammer in those of you who are in public service or even in the business world. A lot of times you will find yourself in these situations, and you experience trauma, you experience distress, something's not right. You can't always put a finger on it yourself, and the level of accountability that your actual workplace has to provide resources for you is very surface level. So what was helpful for me, and even like I used PCM a lot in my personality profile to navigate my exit from healthcare, to be honest with you. That was a process over a couple months period of time, and it was very precarious in different ways. I could have been in a lot of distress. I found myself able to refer often to, okay, I'm a harmonizer. I have to experience this anger and release it about different things. I have to explore what that anger is actually rooted in so that I may, move forward. Just wanted to add that in there. Even if you decide, I don't want to coach, I don't want a, long-term commitment to something that I need to you don't have the energy maybe to work on at this point. Even taking the inventory and having the brief follow-up session is a good start, and it will get your wheels turning in the right direction. Let's just put it that way. Okay.
Yeah. And if your interest is already peaked, you can simply visit educatoraide.com, click on take the key to me inventory, which is at the very top of the website. It will take you directly to my page. And you can set up your debrief as well as your key to me. It includes a complimentary 90-minute coaching session and debrief of your full results. Okay, so let's keep it moving. The 4 myths. We're about to hit you with the 4 myths. And then we'll be closing out. Once again, I'm very much love culture, love studying people, love traveling. This is a picture I took when I was in Bali, Indonesia, and it was right outside where I was staying. And this is literally what the message said, and this is the difference of that life and the lifestyle there at times. So I thought I would just brighten your day with a picture, a personal picture from some of my travels here. And I loved, so many signs I would see there. They have these elements of just saying, enjoy life, cherish the moment, chill out, slow down, cheer up. Like, it's just kind of the essence of how they live. And I really enjoyed my time there. All right. So when we go into what is called first degree distress, and we start showing what are called drivers in the world of PCM, we know what these are. I often know when somebody's giving me a driver when I'm facilitating, for example, a cultural healing conversation or something. I can then pick up on those things, and I can pivot the way I'm communicating, because I can tell now, after going through extensive training, what that really means and what might be underneath that driver. And so you see 2 of those first myths that are put there. And when I'm in first degree distress in any personality, I start to believe these things. I can make you feel good emotionally by doing or thinking for you. I can do that for you. Call it being a mama bear, call it whatever you want. But sometimes we have that mentality. It can kind of come across as crusading or saviorism. I definitely know that I get into those patterns as a persister base in the PCM model. And then the second being, you can make me feel good emotionally by doing or thinking for me. So there are certain personalities that they almost kind of give up their power, and they think, oh, well, that's your fault. I feel this way because of you. Or, well, if you would do this, then I would feel better. And so much of this is about actually taking ownership for processing our own emotions. What do you think about when you see those first 2 myths of the 4 myths, Kara? What comes to mind? Anything come up for you, or just any other things that you want to share?
I'm married to a thinker, and it's very much the first degree of distress that I observe for him. I find myself aware of the fact that I have been trying to manage his emotions around different things. And I have started saying to him, no one can make you feel the way you're feeling. I can't make you feel the way you're feeling. What is it about what I'm saying, or the manner that I'm saying it, that is actually like, what is it? What is that? You know, what is that that's a trigger for you or driving you into distress? And it, you know, with extensive conversation, then often comes out, well, you know, I had this such and such happen with this family member in my childhood, or, you know, I had this person address me this way my whole life and I hated it. And this reminds me of, and it makes me feel, it just reminds me of that. But it's been very helpful for both of us to like talk through that instead of like just doing the pointing finger game of like, you made me feel this way, or, you know, you said this and now it's all your fault, you know, that I'm, you know, crying over here or whatever. No, that's not, nobody can make you feel a way if you are in a very whole, solid place within yourself. And yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so let's go further. You're in your personality condominium that we talked about. You were in first degree distress and you keep going into that basement, second degree distress. Then we start to believe these two myths. I can make you feel bad emotionally, or you can make me feel bad emotionally, which is what Kara so eloquently was sharing about in some of the dynamics, right? That you have in any relationship. It could be romantic, it could be professional, it could be any relationship. And one of the final teaching points I just want to make and remind us and center us all in is that, unfortunately, if it's, for example, Kara and I speaking, if one of us is in distress, okay, we make the assumption when it comes to communication, we make the assumption that I'm in an okay place and she's in an okay place. If one of us is in distress, that means one of us is not in an okay place, and therefore communication will not actually happen. I'm going to say that one more time because that was very difficult for me to grasp. No matter if we're screaming from the mountaintops, if we're crying, if we're laughing, whatever, between two people or two parties, if one is not in an okay place, meaning you are in some level of distress, it could be deeper second or third degree distress, it could be first degree, it could be at the doorway of distress. Either way, communication will not occur.
This requires you.
Look, let me say this real quick because I hear it all the time with teams I work with, but I sent an email.
This requires something of you to live this way, though. You have to check in with people, first of all, and then also be okay with what they say. If they're not okay, you have to be willing to hold your communication for a later time in which they are okay and ask permission and consent, especially in the workplace, as far as, is this a good time for you? Are you doing, like, you have to be responsible for that, and you have to be responsible when people are not okay when you ask the question. You have to figure out how to temper your communication, because I can tell you right now, even in healthcare, like, no communication is that important. It can wait.
Yep. I would agree with that. So the final tidbit then, especially because we do find ourselves, we're recording this on May 26th, 2022, on the heels of, unfortunately, a lot of distress that has been prolonged within the United States, and continues to transpire. We do have a podcast that is intended for use to listen to with your teams, as well as other resources that we've made mention of that on our website there. But this is our podcast, Cultural Capacity. Kara sometimes does guest episodes. I'm typically the one hosting. For now, we might have some special episodes in the future featuring others, and have gotten feedback from others on that and what format they'd prefer to be featured in. So we want to encourage you to check out. Again, we pour our heart and soul into these resources because we have both been in multiple roles in healthcare and K-12 education spaces, and we know how valuable it is to feel like you have support and know that you're not alone when you're processing distress, when we're observing and remembering and grieving the tragic losses across our country through mass shootings, through systemic racism, through many events that continue to plague us. So this is coming, we actually planned this workshop a while ago with the topic. I remember texting Kara about, yeah, I think this is what I'm going to do for May. And it was prior to even having more of these devastating losses. So I did just put out a fresh episode about holding space and processing grief collectively in the workplace today as well on the podcast, specifically talking about some of the recent events. So if you find yourself in a very kind of unstable place, as many of us do right now, and going in and out of distress, remember that you do have the power and you can have access to these tools to try to work through those things. And yeah, would you offer any final words of encouragement, sister?
Yeah. If you find yourself in any way tethered to an organization, and you're finding reliance on them to do your personal healing work, I would just dismiss that idea right here, right now, because that's a lie. I don't know who needs to hear that, but that's a lie. And we're all responsible for our own way of interacting with our own self and making sure that our self is safe in all cases and scenarios. So I would just add that. Do not be reliant on somebody else to do the work that you are required to do for you.
I got to give Coffee House snaps. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to you, whoever has chosen to tune in for yourself today. And as I always say on the podcast, thank you for showing up for yourself. We're not looking for comments or likes or shares or any of that. We're grateful that you are showing up to be the best version of you and to continue serving with your gifts and talents on this earth. So God bless you. And I will see you soon, sister.
Okay.
Bye-bye, everybody.